Good evening. Welcome to the December 13th, 2021 Troy City Council meeting. Please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day and thanks for the blessings you've given us. We ask that you continue to bless us tonight in this city hall as we work through the decisions of our city. Be with our residents who are in the house watching and out in the rest of the community living their lives at this very busy time of year. We ask that you continue to be with our brothers and sisters up in the Oxford area as they're still dealing with the tragedy from a week and a half ago. We ask that you be especially mindful of those who need help this time of year, who are struggling with loss of life in their families, dealing with depression, dealing with other mental illnesses, recognizing that this time of year can be extremely difficult for many. Please be with us always, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The December 13th, 2021 Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. I'll ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson-Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. First up are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have a few of them this evening. C1 is a proclamation to celebrate Troy High student Reagan Choi on earning a perfect score on AP Physics exam. And I'll ask Reagan to meet me down at the podium. Thanks for coming. This is really cool. Sorry. So I have a proclamation here to celebrate Troy High student Reagan Choi on earning a perfect score on the AP Physics exam, and you'll hear why that's exciting in just a sec. Whereas Reagan is currently a senior at Troy High School, preparing to complete his high school education in a few months and applying to colleges. And whereas Reagan took a number of advanced placement tests at the end of his junior year, including the AP Physics C mechanics test. Every student knows that advanced placement tests are extremely difficult and require years of study in order to do well to get that coveted 5 points. And whereas when Reagan received the email that he had received a perfect score in the AP Physics C mechanics exam taken last May, it didn't quite seem real. He was completely surprised, as it's easy to make a small mistake in multiple choice or free response. And whereas Reagan was excited about receiving a score of 5 and never even considered it a possibility that he would achieve a perfect score, and that he would be one of only 2 students out of 49,317 students in the world to achieve a perfect score. And whereas Reagan credits his teachers and education from the Troy School District for helping him achieve this milestone, Brian Glynn from AP Physics C and William Hevel from Physics 1 not only taught physics well, but made it enjoyable by adding humor and communicating with their students. Reagan said his teachers inspired him to continue studying for physics competitions and learn beyond the classroom level. Whereas Reagan hopes to attend MIT for college, and since he enjoys math and computer science as much as physics, he plans to study a combination of these disciplines in college. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and the city council of the city of Troy hereby congratulate Reagan Choi on his accomplishment in scoring a perfect score on the AP Physics exam and for being one of only 2 students out of 49,317 students in the world to achieve a perfect score. And be it further resolved that the mayor and city council of the city of Troy invite all residents to celebrate Reagan Choi's achievement, wish him much success in all his future endeavors, and thank him for being a great role model for our community. So this proclamation, Reagan, is presented this 13th day of December 2021, signed by myself as the mayor. All members of city council have signed it. I'm really honored and excited to present this to you. I think you're just one of many shining examples of our city of students who do so well and make us look so good. So congratulations and thank you. Congratulations, Reagan. Thank you. I just think that's fascinating, really cool. In the world, really, really cool. So C2 is an Oakland County update from County Commissioners Penny Lubes and Tom Kuhn. We'll see if they can beat what I just did with Reagan. So, yeah. Welcome, Commissioners Kuhn and Lubes. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you flip the mic back over? I tend to forget that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us, Mayor Baker, council, staff, and residents of Clawson. We are excited to be here. Tom Kuhn and I are a team. We both represent Troy. Each of us has half of Troy to represent. So we work well together. You need 2 commissioners in Troy because you're so successful with many projects and many things happening in the city of Troy. We did come here today to tell you what we're doing in Oakland County. I will first start with mental health support for families and individuals. So Oakland Community Health Network contracts with Common Ground for services, and they can be reached at 1-800-231-1127, 24 hours, 7 days a week. They also have a text hotline that you can call. In Oakland County, we recently awarded 42 nonprofit organizations nearly $8.5 million in Oakland Together mental health and well-being nonprofit grants to expand mental health services to Oakland County residents. We also recently authorized from our American Rescue Plan money $500,000 for staffing for a program called Navigate, which is also a resource hotline number. We have in the works another grant for recreational activities for our youth and students. That grant would be from $0 to $50,000. So community groups, civic groups, nonprofit groups could apply for that grant for a one-time activity or up to 12 activities in a row. So you should be seeing more information about that in the new year. So we also have Oakland County, Michigan Works, and it's launching a first-of-the-kind program that provides residents enrolled in the state's Futures for Frontliners in Michigan Reconnect programs, supportive services, and funding to cover the costs of books, supplies, and other related expenses. Oakland County residents who are enrolled in these programs and in need of services can contact one of our Michigan Works centers. We have centers in Novi, Oak Park, Pontiac, Southfield, here in Troy and Waterford. And that number is 248-858-5520. So Michigan Works is expanding and we're doing much more. You, as a young person, an older person, can go there for help with resumes, for career searches, just anything you need to make you a viable candidate or applicant for a job. We recently approved our budgets for 2022, 2023, and 2024. It was a bipartisan effort, and we are still continuing to prioritize public health, workforce development, and sustainability efforts. We have a Veterans Resource Fair coming up December 16th from 9 to noon at the Plumbers Local Union 98 in Madison Heights on Horace Brown Drive. So our veterans, active duty, National Guard, and reserves, and their families would be eligible for free food boxes, $100 Meijer gift card while supplies last, information and support for veterans services, help with housing and neighborhood services. We will also have vaccinations on site for that one. Our American Rescue Plan monies we received this year to date is $122 million. So we are collaborating with schools, cities, villages, and townships to thoughtfully use that money. We don't want to use our money where there's something you already planned for to use your money. So we are looking at strengthening healthcare, sustainable activities, the economy, our communities, housing, childcare, basic needs, and fiscal health. So with that, I will turn it over to my partner.
All right. Thank you, Penny, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you in person tonight. One of the most serious problems exacerbated by COVID has been the impact on mental health. The COVID crisis has shown how much more we need to do to provide adequate mental health facilities and services. When the federal government allocated the $122 million that Penny just mentioned to the county earlier this year, mental health was the first priority on our list. We allocated $10 million to address that critical need, and Penny mentioned that 42 entities receiving grants throughout the county. I wanted to just specifically address the programs based here in Troy that got help through those funds. Community Housing Network, based here in Troy, will receive $427 million. $427,000. They will increase access to telehealth and provide mental health and education for families with housing needs. Training and Treatment Innovations, TTI, with an office down the street here on Big Beaver, received $279,000. TTI will increase the number of licensed professionals, which will expand access to mental health services. Alliance of Coalition for Healthy Communities received $248,000. They will expand programs in our middle schools to address mental health challenge of increased stress and anxiety among youth. Beaumont Health up on DeQuinter has received $250,000, particularly benefiting their telehealth and the work of their substance use disorder clinic. Samaritas received $164,000 to service those 19 years old and under with their comprehensive substance use disorder programming, and a facility down here on Big Beaver just east of John R. The Troy Nature Center received $112,000. We've all learned how important our parks and natural areas are to mental health. The Nature Center will expand nature-based programming in partnership with our local hospital systems. The Boys and Girls Club received $100,000. The Boys and Girls Club has partnered with Student Leadership Services to provide the skill training for our elementary and middle school students. And the Arab American and Chaldean Council across the street here from us here in City Hall received $68,000 to provide behavioral therapy skills for adolescents. So those are just the programs located directly in Troy, and other organizations in our surrounding communities will also service the mental health needs of our residents. And this is just the start, and I'm sure that Penny and all the commissioners will agree that we will continue to work to improve mental health facilities and services as our top priority in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Any questions?
Any questions from anyone? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Commissioners, for coming here and updating us. It sounds like you're doing great things. I know you got your first $122 million of Arpa funds. You'll get another half probably later this year. What is your timeline for how you'll decide to allocate that? Is it going to be part of the normal budget process, which is kind of what we're doing with ours, or is there like a specific timeline you have for that?
All these monies are to be utilized in some fashion related to COVID. So we are able to plan for the next year, the next 3 years on how to use the money, and then we have 5 years to use the money.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to follow up, the administration has said that they intend to have a large chunk of this for some innovative programs that will have long-lasting effect on the community. And we haven't heard what those details are, but we're certainly looking forward to hearing.
Great to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for being here tonight. Two separate questions, and just to start, thank you for your work in focusing on mental health. I think as we've seen with things that have happened, like mental health is where we really need to focus our attention. And all of the nonprofits you're partnering with, as someone who works in the nonprofit foundation space, I'm so delighted to see that. And delighted to see the Troy Nature Center, recognizing the role of nature in our mental health. And it made me also think of the recent, the Oakland County Parks recreational millage that was passed. And I know there was a lot of talk about opportunities for Troy to be able to leverage some of those dollars for our own trails and parks, and recognizing that connects to mental health. And just if you see opportunities to help us as our commissioners to be able to leverage those, we would really, really welcome that. Don't know if you've seen anything to date.
Okay, are you referring to trails?
Yes, trails in particular.
All right, I've not seen anything yet, but yes.
Maybe
we'll watch it.
more is coming.
You know, the millage included free admission for 62 and over, and military, and the disabled.
Absolutely. Well, I know we'll continue to look there. Second question was with ARPA dollars. So I appreciate the comment that the county really wants to collaborate with its cities and townships to really be able to maximize that money. My experience when I worked in international development, when you had multiple agencies and multiple people receiving money, you often, what was created was a coordination committee. Is there anything that is being discussed at the county level, either led by the county, but it's a coordination committee, or some council that is engaging, and cities and townships would be a part of that, and through that you would kind of work out how to leverage those dollars and not overlap?
We have an ARPA work group.
Okay.
Divided into 5 different buckets. So mental health and seniors are in one bucket. Workforce development, economic development are in another bucket. Investing in infrastructure, broadband, and transit are a third bucket. Housing, child care, basic needs are the fourth, and fiscal health, Office of Innovation is called as the fifth bucket. So there are conversations, we've had conversations with Oakland schools as to where they're putting their money and how we can support that and move forward with that. I would like to see a licensed mental health professional in each school district or each building, but I'm one person, so we'll see how this turns out.
Well, we look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. Any other questions? I just had a couple questions about. First, thank you both for coming. It's been a long time, and I want to start by thanking you both. You both have been very communicative all throughout COVID, very helpful providing information as things have come along, passing to myself or to the city administration, and it's nice to have two really actively engaged commissioners looking out for Troy's best interests. And I also want to comment, Penny, on what you said when you first came up. It's also really refreshing to hear you two talk about being good partners for the city. All things political can get messy sometimes, but that means a lot. You know, we're a nonpartisan board. I know you're not at the county level, but it's nice to hear you two working together for our best interests. And sometimes I'm sure it's easier said than done, but I do appreciate that, and I think that does make for better representation for our city. So thank you for that as well.
I agree. I appreciate Tom.
And I appreciate Penny.
We have similar views. We may have a little different views, but still we work together because our job, just like you, and what we like to do is serve people. We work for people. We're caretakers at heart, and that's what we do best. So let's take care of people.
I like that. So thank you for that. And a little bit piggyback on your question, I happened to talk to Sean Carlson from the county last week, who was talking about these ARPA funds, and I would just ask you as our representatives to stress to the county executive and to other powers that be that, you know, we are Oakland County's largest city, and if we have any opportunity to partner with the county for better of our citizens and our residents, we would love to. I told the same thing to Sean, and he kind of looked at me and said, okay, I'll talk to the county executive. But as our commissioners, please pass that message along as well. And you know, the ARPA funds are strangely distributed based on entitlement communities, and we're not an entitlement community, so Royal Oak's getting a lot more than we're getting. I just want to make sure that when money coming directly from the county, that's taken into account, and it's not all being shoved in one area when it there's opportunity to help other communities as well. And not just Troy, we're different, but I know you're aware. But that's my 2 cents, and ask for you
Well,
both.
thank you for saying that, because it's 122 million this year, 122 million next year, $244 million. Who would have guessed that? So we also have 488 ideas to at least to filter
Right.
through and collaborate with. But yeah, we'll keep an eye out on parks.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Mayor.
Appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
All right, next up on the agenda are C3 and C4, independent auditors communication, and then our audit presentation. I see CFO Rob Malzik's coming up to the podium. I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can do any further introductions.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. Appreciate being here tonight. With me is Kelly Tim, our City Assessor, Kyle Veith, our Financial Compliance Manager, and Nate Balderman from Raymond Robson. So before I get started tonight, I just wanted to let you know that we have 3 deliverables for you tonight that Nate will talk about more in greater detail. The first thing that you received in your packet, and I think hard copy, was the required communication letter from the auditors. Second is the Single Audit Act Compliance Report. And thirdly is our annual comprehensive financial report. So those are the 3 deliverables. Now, when you break down some of the highlights from this year's audit, the first thing is that we did receive an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that an organization can get. So we're really proud of that. We're no Reagan Choi, but we're pretty darn good. Second thing is the name of the report. If you look over there, it's now called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. That's a name change this year. The first and second words have been reversed. And it's per GASB 98, and I sent council a communication on March 12th regarding why the name changed, and I just want to reiterate it to you when you guys are out in your jobs and you're talking to, at the MML or wherever you're out with citizens, when the old report, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, when the acronym was used, it was a slur in some communities, so we have eliminated that. We implemented it early to get rid of that name, and so this is the name you'll be seeing. We're going to use financial report a lot of the times too, so it's less wordy, so feel free to use that. Thirdly, well, you just heard from the commissioners, there's a lot of federal funds out and about, right? And so we received over $4.6 million of CARES Act money, and we also received $4.1 million of our half of the Arpa funds. So you'll see that within the presentation tonight as well, and Kyle will be speaking on the single audit, and that's something new that we haven't had in a while, so we wanted to make sure you guys understood what that single audit is. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, as in the changes, is we moved our Act 51 dollars, which is our major and local streets, out of the general fund, and you might remember that from budget time. And I see some nodding heads, so that's good. So you'll see some changes in our financial numbers. And lastly, I just wanted to say this is not financial, but I just thought it was really interesting. On page 9 of our financial report, we have our principal officers. So it's like the 23 highest people from Mark on down in our organization. And there's 6 new names this year. So 6 out of 23, we have new names. So we have a new assessor like Kelly. We have a new treasurer, fire chief, purchasing manager, recreation director, and library director. And I just want to point out, even with all those changes, through Mark's leadership, we've been able to produce great services for this community during a very hard time. So that being said, we're going to move on to the report that we give you each year. So, I went too far already. So this first budget slide, budget to actual slide, is our revenues. We're going to start with revenues. We've been giving you the 10-year look over the last 3 years that I've been here, and I think it's important to note that we finally have gotten rid of that dip from the Great Recession. So now we really can't talk about the Great Recession anymore in a 10-year look. If you look, though, every year we do a good job. We are conservative with our budgeting revenues, and then we beat it every year except in 2020 when we were hit hard by COVID. This next slide is a little more granular. It shows the breakdown of where our revenues come from. Property taxes rule the day. You can see that. We beat budget there. Intergovernmental is primarily the federal revenue and also the state revenue sharing. And you can see we really did a number on that budget. And just a note, a little bit on the negative side, investment earnings. If you would look at this slide in the early 2000s when interest rates were high, that was up to, one year was up to $5 million. This year was actually negative when you do the mark-to-market June 30th year-end mark-to-market. So, yep, we got about $1 million overall in interest income, but with interest rates going up right at June 30th, we had to record a loss on those, and it's a temporary loss. But just to show you that back in the day, that was a viable line, and that's why it's actually in this report. Okay, now this just shows the revenue by source. And again, you can see property taxes are the number one thing, and that's why I'm going to have Kelly come up here next, and she can talk about some property tax information for you. And just the other point is intergovernmental, 24% this year. A year ago, that was 17%, I believe. So big change. And Kelly, come on up.
Good evening. These values that are shown up on this slide first are from 2020, because that would be our fiscal end, 2021. So our assessed value, taxable value, and the taxable value as a percentage of the assessed value, because there's two different values, so it's 76% of assessed value. Taxable value, as you know, increases and is capped at the rate of inflation, or 5%, whichever is higher, whichever is less. So for next year's budget, it'd be 1.4%, and then for fiscal year ending 2023, it's 3.3%. Residential continues to outpace commercial, industrial, and personal property. Residential is approximately 68% of our taxable value, and commercial, industrial, and personal are approximately 32% of taxable value.
So on to expenditures, budget versus actual. As you can see here, every year we're below budget when it comes to expenditures. That's by state law. We have to be anyway. But in this particular year, we did really well. The best year we've had since 2012. And Mark and I were talking about 2012 the other day and how the major changes going on in the organization at that time. And that's why there was such a big budget to actual variance in that year. But this year we were over $5 million favorable to budget. And again, that's through a lot of the hard work of all the department heads, employees. Every single person involved in the city is responsible for that favorable variance. Breaking it down by function, getting a little more granular, you can see public safety was where we spend the majority of our money. We were favorable there by approximately $1.7 million. We have some vacancies in the police department right now, and that's biggest reason why that is. Recreation and culture, we were over $2 million favorable to budget. And unfortunately, that's because we couldn't perform the services because of COVID that we needed to do. And then community development, that variance is approximately $700,000, and that was in the engineering department. So similar to revenue, I'm showing you a pie chart. This is public safety, 64% of our expenditures. And now that we have the roads, major roads and local roads out of these numbers, this is very similar to almost all the other communities that I've analyzed before, whether it's other community, our peer communities. So it's usually around 2/3, and we're at 64%. So this makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm going to turn it over to Kyle now, and he's going to talk about the single audit and why we're having one and all that good stuff.
Good evening. So as Rob mentioned, my name's Kyle Veith. I am the new financial compliance manager with the city of Troy. I just started in November. So as many of you are aware, there's been a significant amount of federal awards. There's been a significant amount of federal awards coming through that's available for all cities and communities. So in this year, you can see that we have a new report, the single audit report, and ultimately that was triggered by that CARES Act coming through. So what ultimately triggers a single audit is when we expend, as a city, $750,000 in federal funding. So the key here is that it's really when we expend it, not when it's awarded. So I'd say a big takeaway there would be that the grant awards often will span multiple years. So like our rescue plan, we have until technically 2024 to obligate those funds and 2026 to expend the funds. So there's a lot of room and time for those. You know, you could get $750,000 in expenditures year over year, so it could be triggered. Prior to this, the city's last single audit was for the fiscal year on June 30th of 2016. There was like an MDOT road grant was tested during that time. So it's been a while since we've had. And then in terms of single audits, they're compliance based. So ultimately it's getting at, you know, did we spend the grant dollars accordingly, and, you know, are we doing the right thing with the grant dollars, essentially, is where it boils down to. And then some of our more common recurring city grants that we see, you know, we have our community development block grants. You often hear those as CDBG grants. We have our Homeland Security grants, and then our Department of Justice and Transportation grants. At the previous meeting, it was noted that, you know, we reprogrammed a good portion, a couple $100,000 of CDBG funds, and then also we have a new MDOT grant for the widening of Rochester Road for about $4.3 million. So again, non-ARPA related, some significant federal dollars. So kind of moving on, in terms of like our single audit this year, so the CARES Act, those dollars are ultimately what caused us to have a single audit in the current year. So those dollars were pretty much administered by the state and the county. And yes, they came from the state and county, but ultimately they were federal dollars passed through the state and the county, which were subject to single audit. So these funds were, you know, heavily utilized for public safety, public health, payroll, PP&E, library assistance, elections assistance, and then basically anything to kind of combat the pandemic. And as you can see, our totals were about, it was almost about 50-50 from the state, and then 50% from the state, and then about 50% from Oakland County. I do want to point out that the Oakland County pass-through of the 2.12 is just slightly higher than the public safety, public health payroll reimbursement program of 2.12, just the rounding. It's just a coincidence. Just felt like I'd share that. But ultimately, we had, you know, additional federal awards, but the CARES Act under CFDA 21019, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, was subject to testing. And on our schedule of federal expenditures, these made up about $4.5 million of the total $4.9 million. So about 92% of our federal expenditures were subject to audit, which is pretty significant. And then one last thing I wanted to mention we did receive an unmodified opinion as well. So the highest level of opinion. So I think, you know, single audit really checked out really well. And then kind of 2020, you know, the end of 2021, and then kind of fiscal years going forward. So we now have the American Rescue Plan. So under this plan, the city of Troy has received approximately $8.2 million. And we plan to, you know, there's 4 different categories that these funds can be spent on: public health and negative impacts, premium pay, revenue loss, and then water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Right now, we're planning on doing the revenue loss approach, because there is a little bit more flexibility. However, right now, the guidance that is out there is based on the interim final rule, which is from May 17th of 2021. They have released some FAQs with, you know, further guidance on what we could do with those dollars, but until that final rule ultimately comes out, I think it's kind of just we're waiting to see, because we want to spend our dollars accordingly. And then just one thing to note, of that $8.2 million, we received $4.1 million in May of 2021, which that is currently sitting on our books as a liability as unearned revenue, because we have not spent those funds. And then the remaining $4.1 million is to be received in probably May 2022, or that's the estimated time. It could change. But end of the day, we're receiving significant federal dollars, and, you know, we're probably going to have quite a bit of single audits going forward. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
Appreciate it. All right, 2 more slides. The revenue and expenditures, this is over a 10-year period again, and you can see this year we had a lot of excess revenue over expenditures, approximately $6 million, and that leads into our fund balance. I know this is a little busy, but just wanted to show you that the blue is our unassigned fund balance, and it's over 38%. That's over our guidance between 20 and 30%. So in the budget time, we're going to spend that balance down over the next 3 years to get it in between 20 and 30%. But you can also notice it's the highest it's been since 2014. And the one last comment I wanted to make was non-spendable. So what that is, that's part of our fund balance. It's in the black line that continues to grow. And that grew $1.5 million this year for the purpose of the Aquatic Center and Sanctuary Lake. So just again, know that the general fund continues to subsidize those two entities. And last but not least, we did receive for the 24th year in a row the GFOA Excellence in Reporting, and very proud of that. It's not a requirement, but it's something that we choose, and we are one of the few communities that get the Triple Crown, which is this award, the award for popular financial report, and the budget. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Nate before any questions.
Good evening, and thank you. They took away all my thunder. We talked about the unmodified reports and everything that's in there. I'll just add, as we were looking at the single audit, it was the first time we conducted that since 2016 with the Transit Center. I will say one caveat to that is in terms of the normal, as you put it on when it's expended, if you remember, a lot of those funds actually were expended in 2020. But because of the timing of the awards and that type of thing, it actually got delayed in how it got recognized in the current year. So we didn't have any findings either this year on internal controls. That's a part of the report, what we're required to do. In addition to, when we're planning our procedures, we're required, if things come to our attention, to report any kind of material weakness or significant deficiency to you. And we had none of those this year, either on the financial statement, internal controls, or on the internal controls over compliance for the single audit. And then finally, too, in that separate letter that Rob had mentioned, sometimes there may be attachments to that for management letter comments. We did not have any comments this year. Again, so very clean audit this year. Commend Rob and Lisa and the whole team for being very well prepared once again this year and getting through a clean audit. So, but I don't know when the time would be, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. So,
all right. Thank you. Good to see you. Any questions from council for Nate or for Rob or anybody? Wow. Councilmember Hoderick?
It's a little bit of a comment that maybe I'm looking for affirmation from staff, but the combination of our Oakland County Commissioners talking about the funds that are coming in and where they're looking to allocate, and our public safety expenditures, I know we hear from residents about public safety as a priority, and I'm sensing just this bolstering of all the things that lead to public safety. Of course, it's police and fire and the things we do, but mental health and economic development and parks and whatnot. It is a whole sphere of things that lead to a community that's functioning in a safe way. And so I'm hearing that. And so if people are wondering, is public safety a priority? Absolutely. These are all the conversations people are having based on feedback from, those that are on the front lines, our first responders, teachers in our schools. I shouldn't speak for all of you, but I know we all hear that, right? Is it okay? Yes. So, correct? I mean, it's like the holistic need that we needed feels like it's coming. And I guess I'm just looking for affirmation of that observation. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then secondly, we've seen you here doing our audits for a number of years, and it's really good to see you again, and to hear that there wasn't even a comment section this year that's like, yes, right? So thank you. Thank you for the work you do for us, and we'll keep on keeping on. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Hamilton?
Just
I knew you couldn't resist.
I know I'm usually the one that asks the most questions, but this year's, previous years, all my questions were answered, and this year's was such a good report that I didn't really have much to add. All I have is a comment that it's nice to see the fiscal strength of our city. We paid down so much debt. Our pension liabilities are looking amazing. Those funds are almost all fully funded. And even our golf courses, we're in the cash flow positive $1 million over the last year, which is great to see, and that'll help us in 6 years when the debt on that's paid off. It'll help us kind of restore some of the money that the general fund is loaning to it. So, and then also 8% over the fund balance again is great to see, and I look forward to our upcoming budget and a lot of things we're going to do.
Thank you, David. Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranger?
Thank you, Mayor. Just make a quick comment. So with the financial report, I was reminded when I did my municipal finance training, it was really hammered into us that a strength of a city is in its diversity of its revenue sources, and in particular that there's strength around its own source revenue, and of course property tax being the largest source for us. And thinking, Ms. Tim, your presentation that you just gave of us, that we're just grateful. I'm just grateful that residential property, that it has stayed strong during the pandemic, and just to let residents know who are listening, that is a great thing with our city, and that has kept that own source revenue really strong, which is the base. It is kind of very much the chunk and the base of all that we do, so we can support our public safety and we can do the great things we want to do. And then ARPA, those federal dollars, I feel like that's just added benefit on top of that. But just grateful for this year, and it's just great to see it in the financial report. So thank you for presenting it.
Anyone else? I want to thank CFO Malzik for a great presentation. I've seen several at this point. I like the tone and tenor of how you're doing things, and also like what the numbers are actually showing. Painfully aware that things can change based on a lot of different circumstances. So while we're so thankful for the rosy look now, we always have to be prepared for things that can happen, and dollars can disappear quickly when it comes to a market change, right? So I know that's something we need to be mindful of. And nice to meet you, Kyle. Good job. And Kelly, you too. It's completely different presenters other than you, Nate, as things have changed. And so I think that also goes to show, like it was mentioned, we do have turnover, but things are in good hands with the team that we've got going. So thank you for everything you presented, and looking forward to the budget season especially.
Thank you, Council, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you.
You too, brother. Thank you. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations this evening. There are no carryover items, no public hearings. There's nobody signed up for public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, so there's no need for reply. No postponed items. So we move on to regular business. First up is board and committee appointments. Mayoral appointments are first. I'd like to move the appointments of Ellen Hoderick as an alternate to the Local Development Finance Authority to expire at the end of her term, as well as Sandra Backert as a resident member for an unexpired term ending June 30th, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranger, that we appoint Ellen Hoderick as the alternate to the LDFA and Sandra Backert as a resident member to the LDFA for the unexpired term expiring June 30th, 2023. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranger?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. We thank Councilmember Hoderick as the alternate and our resident member, Sandra. Next up, I'd like to move the appointments of Michael Hudson, Dave Lambert, and John Tagle to the Planning Commission for the term expiring December 31st, 2024.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we appoint Michael Hudson, Dave Lambert, and John Tagle to the Planning Commission, reappoint actually, for the terms expiring December 31st, 2024. Any discussion? I'll just say quickly that I'm happy to reappoint those 3 individuals, especially as we're in the middle of the master plan update. I think it's smart to keep course with the members that have been part of the experience, and thankful for their service to the community. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. Turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt for council appointments.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to begin with moving the reappointment of Councilmember David Hamilton to the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, term expiring November 13th, 2023.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we appoint the reappointment, approve the reappointment of Councilmember Hamilton as the delegate to the Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments for the term expiring November 13th, 2023. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and then for the student representative to the Traffic Committee, I would move the appointment of Tyler Korolewski for a term expiring July 31st, 2022.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we appoint as the student representative to the Traffic Committee Tyler Korolewski for the term expiring July 31st, 2022. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes board and committee appointments by City Council. Next up is I-2, board and committee nominations. I have no mayoral nominations this evening. Are there any City Council nominations? That concludes board and committee nominations. Next up is I-3, a request for closed session. All moved, be it resolved that the Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268H, MCL 15.243G.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-3 as printed in the agenda packet and read into the record, and as a request for closed session. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will meet in closed session at the conclusion of this open session and adjourn from in there. Next up is I-4, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, Low Bidder Meeting Specifications, Replacement of Pump Station located at the Sanctuary Lake Golf Course. And this will be introduced by our Assistant Recreation Director, Nikki McCarron. Hi, Nikki.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you is to replace the pump station at Sanctuary Lake Golf Course. The pump station drafts stormwater from the pond to irrigate the entire course. It was originally installed in 2002. Replacement of the pump station was identified in the facilities condition assessment and analysis. The pump station has reached the end of its reliable life and is currently running on one pump. It has been repaired multiple times to extend its life. Now repair parts are no longer available, causing the full replacement. Failure to replace the pump station could lead to inability to irrigate the course, which would cause damage to the turf, resulting in an unplayable course. Mid-Ohio Electric Company from Columbus, Ohio was the low bidder, meeting all bid specifications and could meet our needs in the shortest amount of time. The purchase amount is $154,967.49, with a 10% contingency not to exceed $170,500. City management recommends a contract be awarded to Mid-Ohio Electric Company. This purchase will require a budget amendment to the Sanctuary Lake Capital Fund for $170,500. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nikki. Any questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I-4, Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, Low Bidder Meeting Specification, Replacement of Pump Station located at the Sanctuary Lake Golf Course, as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-4 Budget Amendment and Standard Purchasing Resolution 2, low bidder meeting specifications, replacement of pump station located at the Sanctuary Lake Golf Course, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Motion carries. You're 1 for 1, Nikki. Good job. That was her first presentation to council. All right, next up is I-5 bid waiver, 12-inch Claval pressure reducing valve and controls, to be introduced by our Public Works Director, Kurt Bovensiew.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Pressure reducing valves is a valve that's in line to take the Great Lakes Water Authority's pressure that comes into the city, which can be over 100 pounds per square inch, reduce that to a workable pressure to deliver to the homes and businesses in Troy. This particular PRV was scheduled to be replaced this fiscal year, and through our consultant and designing, we recognize that it's important to order the valve itself now because of manufacturing delays. So we're requesting a bid waiver specifically for this manufacturer because our professionals in the water department feel that this particular manufacturer is far superior than other manufacturers. In addition, we have many of these manufactured PRVs throughout the city, so it reduces the amount of inventory we have to keep in if there was something that needs to be repaired. So that would be the reason, the request for the bid waiver. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions? Someone excited about moving some infrastructure? Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
I'll move I-5 bid waiver, 12-inch Claval pressure reducing valve and controls as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, that we approve I-5 bid waiver, 12-inch Claval pressure reducing valve and controls as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6, Business Engagement and Priority Study, and that'll be introduced by Assistant City Manager Bob Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many of you will remember we've been working on this for quite some time. City Council approved contracts with Cobalt Community Research back in June 2020. We did a library survey, we did a resident survey, and now we're ready to do the business survey. So this doesn't require any formal City Council action, but as we did with the previous resident survey, we wanted to give you a sneak preview, see what we've been working on. I've been working with Glenn Lapin on this, and unfortunately he's away on family business tonight. So in order to keep the ball rolling, we wanted to get this survey in front of you and get your feedback.
Thank you, Bob. Any feedback from council to share from the table? Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do have a number of questions. The first one is, I recognize the last major survey we did, the resident engagement survey, we launched that in January, and so it looks like the goal of this is to launch it at the end of January, the third week. And just wondering, is that a fortuitous time, or love to hear more about why January?
Well, because we didn't want to do it before the holidays, basically, and so I think there's, I don't know if there's any right time to do a survey, but there are several wrong times to do a survey. And I think there's really no magic to it. It's just a decent time of the year to do it.
Sounds like, I just know we talked about it last spring. For some reason, I thought we had done it. We were going to do it sooner, but I'm glad to do it. I think winter's a great time. People are sitting home. They're not out as much, so I think it's a great time to do a survey. The other thing was, I know we had recommended this in an earlier session, because we've been talking about this, I think, almost a year or so about the business survey, is did you have a chance to consult the DDA, our property owners and many of those?
Yes, we did, and that was something that Glenn helped with. We solicited input on the survey from the DDA.
Wonderful. Other thing is, I always put this, a note in, is it'd be great just to give the schools Troy School District, the other school districts kind of in Troy heads up, because I know we're asking about the schools, and it's just always a nice courtesy to do that. The other piece of input, just the last one, was there's a question, 2 questions. I'm afraid that there could be some confusion, so either clarity or maybe it's one of them. So, and I can't remember what section this is on, but there's a question that says, that you respond to and rank is, a vibrant city, boldly leading, welcoming to all. And then a question, welcoming to all through community engagement. So I do think, they're saying different things. The community engagement is more kind of how we're reaching out to residents. The first, actually, to me, speaks to our diversity. And, I know this is modeled off and these are samples from other cities, but knowing that we have the great diversity we do in Troy is maybe just so it's clear, because otherwise they look very similar and it might make it hard to respond, is just to clarify the first, welcoming to a diverse population, just to call that out. So that would be my input, because I always like to see in our questions, we're recognizing our diversity and we want to reach out and we want to hear what, what residents, in this case, business owners, some of whom are residents, what they have to say.
Yeah, I'm looking for the question right now. Do you happen to?
I'd have to pull it up, yeah, in front of me, so.
Okay.
Perhaps you can email if you find it, Councilmember Chamberlain Craig. And certainly any of us, I don't know when the trigger needs to be pulled, Bob, but if we have some thoughts after this and need to email you, I'm sure we have.
Absolutely.
I think it's like page 3, something like that.
Number 11.
Additional, Councilmember Hamilton.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions. I just had a comment that I was extremely happy with the library and resident survey. When I was on the campaign trail last year, all the things that were the main priorities that came up in the resident survey were what people were telling me. I think it really nailed the opinion. And obviously the library survey was pretty much nailed what the residents were too. So I'm really looking forward to this, to seeing where our businesses are, especially COVID continuing and everything else going on. I'm really looking forward to this. I feel like this is really, really needed, and I'm glad to see this here right now.
Thank you, David. Councilmember Chamberlain Craig, do you have a follow-up?
I just remembered, I had another kind of comment, or just would love your input on is, this is a really, interesting time to be reaching out to our business owners, and businesses, and ask them, around, we're talking about the future of work and hybrid work, and maybe there's a question to ask about, because these are based on other townships and cities, and presumably from an earlier period in time, that this would be a good time to ask kind of, how is this, I had it worded somewhere, kind of, how do you feel that the city is set up to meet your changing priorities in light of a changing work environment? And I think of a session I did with Urban Land Institute that City Manager Miller was on as well, that really talked about the different elements that actually office space needs in this changing environment. And just if there's some way to ask that, which is also why it's good to have consulted the DDA in advance, but if there's a way to squeeze in a question about that, this I think is a great time just to get that input.
Thank you. Anyone else on council? Comments, questions? I'll just add my 2 cents. I appreciate moving forward with this. Obviously, for us, the key is the results and what we do with those results, because doing a survey without utilizing the results doesn't do much for the community. I did speak with both Tara Thompson-Cusack and Sheila Denstadt from the Chamber over the weekend, and they saw a draft of this and they thought it was great, and they're more than willing at the Chamber to help with any distribution or any marketing with their business, because obviously it's more than just the DDA, it's businesses altogether. So I'm sure that's not news to either of you or to any of you, but they are just wanted to give their affirmation that they're willing to help in any way they can as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes regular business this evening. We next move to the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Councilmember Abraham.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. Next up is announcement of public hearings. There is one, K1, for January 10th, 2022 is a zoning ordinance text amendment, file number ZOTA 256, apartments in Big Beaver zoning district. City Attorney Bloom, did you want to say anything about that?
Well, it is a planning, it's something that the Planning Commission has reviewed and recommended, and of course, as always, you can provide any input to us beforehand, and there will be a public hearing for that. Okay.
Thank you. Next up is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have 3 people signed up this evening. As a reminder, our public comment rules are stated in our agenda packet. You have 3 minutes at the podium. When the light turns yellow, you have 1 minute left, and when it's red, your 3 minutes is up. So with that said, I will call on first Gail Morrell.
My name is Gail Morrell. I live in Troy. I've lived here for 34 years. I live close to I-75 up where we had a lot of work done in the last several years. I am with a group of people. I think that's everybody that signed up. I expected them to speak first, but I was on time early, actually. Anyway, I live a distance from that section of I-75. I would say close to a half mile. The noise is unbelievable. The increase in noise is unacceptable. My son lives closer to it. I go to his house, and I cannot believe the amount of noise. He lives closer to Firefighters Park. And we have gotten this group together. We have canvassed the neighborhood. We have 700 signatures of other disappointed residents in the city. And we have high hopes that you will support us and get something done to help us out. In the summertime, the motorcycles racing down I-75 at 2 in the morning is unbelievable. It's happened in the past, but it is in our bedroom windows. So we have a lot of signatures, and we hope that we can get your support in helping us to get something resolved with that.
Thank you, Ms. Morrell. Appreciate
Thank you.
Going first, too. That's tough sometimes when you're not expecting it. Next up on the list is Susan Saxton.
Thank you all. I've lived in Troy in Foxhall since it was built, so I've been here since the late 80s. I live in the middle of the subdivision, and this summer we could not sit out on our patio, and we don't face 75 except our bedroom windows do, so they stayed open. So I guess I've been doing some of the canvassing and getting signatures, and people ask me, what is the city of Troy doing? And I don't know, but I tell them what I know from in the past, that there's been discussion that it's a state problem and a federal problem, but they're not happy about that. And we know, you know, people that we don't know that may be able to help us. And I've had a few in my going around where neighbors have actually moved out of Troy because of the noise. And people are really angry, and these people vote. And like I said, we're still getting signatures. And, you know, can you help me out and tell me, is anything going on currently?
I can't answer right now. It's not a back and forth, but we'll have a chance to talk. So
okay.
Still your time, though.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to just ask, and I'm probably really out of line here, but if you can't, is there any way that you can get behind and support us? I know Dave came to a meeting at my house to support us. I mean, certainly the state and the feds, they're going to do what they're going to do. and we're just trying to put pressure to fix the problem. We know we're not pulling out the 75. But is there another capacity that the city can help us to address this, you know, or we have no resources. We're just pulling it out of our pockets. So that's basically what I came to say.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Like I said, we'll have an opportunity to respond in just a couple minutes. Okay, thank you.
I can step back?
You can step back. Next up on the list is Luis Pugliese.
Okay, good evening. I'm a neighbor from Gale, actually three houses from here, and I got the same problem. I moved in Troy about 30 years ago. Beautiful, everything is beautiful. And we found now this problem with the I-75. To me, I'm an engineer. I believe it's a poor design. They miss complete the wall on the north side. They keep the walls only on the south. So this noise is reflecting in us. Now we are worse than before, than anything. So I think it's already $300,000 assigned to make the evaluation of the noise, right? I hope you guys, Troy, help us, because MDOT did the job. To me, it was a poor design, because it was missing houses to satisfy to build the missing wall. So this situation is not good. As a reference, about, I think I can say 15 years ago, I have a house in Livernois before the widening, and the city of Troy designed some independent, the cost, how much the damage in my property. They come out with pretty much 10% of the value of my property, get a check. And when I try to sell my property, good luck. Because it's noisy, nobody wants to have. If you're going into the firefighter now and see, it's amazing, the traffic of the cars. It's like a crazy. What is it? It's like a game of my grandchild. You need to do something. You got a lot of money to spend, right? I think you have money from the government too. We need your help, please. I think I said. Any question, anything?
Thank you. That's
okay.
Good. Thank you very much. That concludes those that have signed up for public comment from items not on the agenda from Troy residents. I didn't see you sign up. Did you sign up? I signed up out there. All right, go ahead and come forward. We'll assume it's a computer glitch. And sir, you're signed up for non-Troy residents, correct? Thank you. What was your name? Lorraine. Oh, Lorraine. I know Lorraine. I know you, Lorraine. Hi. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Lorraine Scussel, and I live on Crabapple. I attended a previous city council meeting in the summer regarding the traffic noise from I-75. You probably remember there were like 20 or 30 of us, and we really made a big to-do about it. I think there were about 20 residents that attended, and everyone that came up said they were very angry and upset about the traffic noise. Well, to us, nothing really has changed. Nothing has been, mitigated as far as the noise. It just keeps getting louder, to tell you the truth. They've opened up all the lanes of traffic now. After the last city council meeting, we decided that we were going to organize a group. So we now have approximately 150 members just by word of mouth. In the last 4 weeks, we went to homes in 9 subdivisions along I-75. And as of today, we have approximately 700 signatures from voting residents. And when you go door to door, half the people don't even answer. So really, if every home in the last 3 weeks answered their door, we'd have 1,500 signatures. And this is really just the beginning. We have the signatures because we're signing onto a letter that we're sending to Padma Kupa and Mallory McMorrow. And what we'd like to do is copy you, everyone on that letter. So the letter really basically requests some mitigation to the noise, and what are they going to do in the future to help us out here. We're hoping for a meeting with them and MDOT representatives, and maybe even you want to participate. So everyone that we went to, all the homes, all these nice people here volunteered. We have about 15 volunteers getting signatures. When we knocked on doors, people were very upset, and they couldn't wait to sign this. They asked us what took us so long to get to their doors. It's really pathetic how upset and angry everybody is about this. I see I have 1 minute left. The point is that we have 700 signatures and counting. We're going to continue to get more signatures. I have no idea where we're going to end up with this, but it just continues to grow, and the anger continues to grow. As Sue mentioned earlier, people have been moving out of the city of Troy, and they're saying that it's because of the 24/7 thunderous noise. So in the meantime, is there any assistance that you can provide to us? You know, is there a meeting room that you could offer when we do get this meeting, hopefully with Padma Kupa and Mallory McMorrow? Maybe you could provide some legal advice to us. I don't know. I know that you can't, you've said in the past that you can't get involved, but maybe there is something that you can do to help us out. We don't know when the sound study has been scheduled. We really don't have any information. No one is really staying in touch with us. So we're kind of looking for a liaison with you, with the city council. And I guess that's it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your coming forward. And sorry that the computer didn't recognize your name on the list, but.
I don't know why it's not out there.
Not sure either. That concludes those who have signed up for public comment from Troy residents for items not on the agenda. Now's an opportunity for city council, city administration response and reply. I'm going to start with City Manager Miller, if that's okay.
Yes.
Well, it is okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So what has happened to this point is I personally have sent letters to the governor and the director of MDOT. The governor did not respond, but the MDOT director did. Also, State Senator Mallory McMorrow has gone through the legislative process to have approximately $300,000 allocated for a noise study. And while we were having this meeting, City Engineer Bill Hootery sent us an update of information and saying that the study has not begun. They're waiting for a formal grant application for the appropriation to be prepared. And the guy from MDOT says he doesn't know where it is in the process. We'll try to find out. I'm sure this council will support residents to reduce the noise in what we can, but the fact is this is a state project done with federal dollars that has to follow federal regulations. And we'll work with council and our state and federal elected officials as much as possible, such as this Wednesday, I have a Zoom meeting with Congresswoman Haley Stevens, and they're well aware of it, and I'll bring it up at that meeting again on Wednesday.
Me too. Thanks, Mark.
If council has any, passes any proclamations or anything along those lines, we'll be happy to pass them on up at the state level.
Already, right? And before you go, Councilmember Hodrick, that's part of the frustration. If 7 of us said right now, Mark, spend $100 million on building a wall on I-75, can't do it because it's not owned, we don't own the land, right? There's times I wish we could just do that, I'll tell you right now. I mean, and so that is the difficulty of trying to play by their rules. You hear they haven't even done the procurement grant yet for the sound study, which most of you have emailed and said, well, you don't need to do a sound study, we know it's too loud. We know that too, but their rules say that's what has to be done first. And it's unfortunate and very frustrating to say the least, but I'll say a little more later. But Councilmember Hodrick, go ahead.
You know what, in between the sentences that are coming to us in emails and even when you talk to us here, you're wondering if we have your backs as best as we can. I can assure you, anytime I'm talking to our representatives, I bring this up. There was a panel discussion that Mayor Baker was with Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter, who doesn't have really anything to do with this, but I brought it up to him. And I think all of us do, and it's been on our hearts and minds probably before most people even realized there was going to be an issue in the city. We did do proclamation that we sent to the governor, our federal and our state reps. I hate to brainstorm from the table, but I think it might be appropriate and would help our residents understand that we really do support you. And, I know City Manager Miller has sat in meetings. I know our Rep. Kupa, Senator McMorrow, it's on all of our minds. but government moves slowly, especially when you're looking at such a rural-oriented thing as this is. Our city engineer, Bill Hootery, we have the best roads guy ever. I mean, if there was somebody who could find a magic wand to wave, Bill Hootery would do it. I mean, you have all the right people looking at this. What it takes is time and patience. I hear the noise too, so I understand that you don't want to hear me say that. I get it. It's possible we could do another proclamation that could make you all feel, you have your signatures, you have your letter. We could be the buck slip, dating myself back to the corporate world. I've lived here over 30 years too, as I use that term. I guess you could hear that. Our proclamation could, if you're looking for oomph, if you're looking for us to demonstrate, we are behind the scenes, but you don't see it. It would be the visible demonstration. When that comes to be and you're ready to send it, yes, I maybe consensus here, we would put a proclamation with that then goes. Rules are in place for a reason on federal dollars and state dollars and how they're allocated, but it can be so frustrating. This is why people hate government, right? Because it can't move as fast. For a good reason, though, I will say sometimes. It's just when you're at the other end of a slow process, it's excruciatingly awful to deal with. So, I mean, I'll even draft it for folks. We can go back to that and we can reaffirm and demonstrate that this really is truly a concern of our community and help you in that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's consensus, I think, from 4 of us to move in that direction. Timing's always an issue. I don't know when you want to submit yours. We don't have another meeting now until January 10th. So keep that in mind. But appreciate that offer, Councilmember Hoderick, and I think that's a good something. Obviously, it's not the thing, but we can't have it back and forth and discuss. So we can talk after if you want a little bit about it. Additional Councilmember Hamilton?
Thank you. I met with some of you earlier last year, and thank you all for organizing and putting on the pressure, because last year when the big group came here, I remember Councilmember Abraham spoke really eloquently about this and talked about how this problem was brought on by MDOT, and it shouldn't be Troy taxpayers' responsibility to fix that. They should be the ones that fix it. I mean, we'll make sure it gets done, but we got to work with their process because we want them to make sure they'll fix the mistake that they brought to all you guys. So I support what we're doing. We're behind you, and I know it's frustrating, but we got to do it.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Anyone else? I said a little bit earlier, but we don't talk about it every meeting, but we talk about it every day. I know. I mean, it's on our minds constantly, and I know you've sent emails, and every time I see one of your emails, I think, oh, I know. I live in the area too. I mean, I hear the noise, so I do understand from that level. But it is so frustrating for us to sit here feeling like we're handcuffed, and the best we've got is what little influence we have. I think I said at a previous meeting, we're willing to use it where we can on this issue, and my suggestion is, as carefully as I can, keep getting your signatures, keep getting people involved. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes other people don't pay attention until there is enough of a splash somehow. City Attorney Bloom probably hates that I just said that, but don't do any splashes in here, but because we're here to help you. But honestly, I mean, you're not on the wrong path, in my opinion. And I appreciate you advocating on this, not just for yourselves, but for the whole community that's affected, because it is affecting a huge portion of our community with I-75 running right through us. I'll continue to speak up about it with Representative Koopa, Senator McMorrow, Congresswoman Stevens, the liaisons we have at the governor's office I'll reach out to again, and the county level if anything. There is, the other thing is you hear a lot about the COVID relief funds that are coming out that this doesn't tie in, so it's apples and oranges when it comes to money, and I think that's tough also. But we'll keep advocating and help you any way we can for our city. I can't take any more questions right now. I appreciate it. If you want to hang around, we can chat for a couple minutes after, okay? Thank you. All right. Thank you. That concludes City Council and City Administration response or reply to public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Does anyone on council have any comments on the reports? All right, I see none, so I'll move on to council comments. Seems like all we do is comment. Anyone else? All right, well then I will say from council comments, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. This is our last meeting of the year. Look forward to coming back in January. Lots to do, as we've been talking about, but we stay safe, everybody, on every level. Pay attention to those around you who may be struggling with mental health issues. You never know who may need just a quick text or a hello or even a hug. It means a lot to somebody in need. And with that, I will go ahead and recess. We have a closed session, but I can chat with you for a couple minutes.
No, we have the,
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I'm not used to this. I forgot about this agenda. My apologies, sir. We will not adjourn or recess. Next is public comment. These are the new rules that we advocated for and I forgot about. Public comment for items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy, not residents of Troy and not from Troy businesses. We have one person signed up. It's a non-Papuri. Mr. Papuri, I'm so sorry. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Anand Papuri. I am a Novi resident, and I have a business in energy efficiency solar, and the business name is Spark Building Energy Solutions. But one of the things is I am very passionate about solar, climate, reducing climate impact on the earth. So also I'm a member of Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, which is a non-profit organization basically promoting solar energy efficiency in the state of Michigan. They work with state and MPS and everything to promote energy efficiency. So here, like one of the action items I took on me is to create awareness in other local community, local governments to start a sustainability goals, energy goals within the cities. Like I'll take a few examples. City of Ann Arbor has aggressive goals of carbon neutral by 2030, which is very, very aggressive. It's 2022 right now. And City of Grand Rapids has started a sustainability office a couple of years ago. And also like other cities, City of Livonia has a Green Leaf Commission that encourages energy efficiency and solar within the community. So, and other things is why, I want here the City of Troy to be very aggressive and start this is important is federal infrastructure bill, like infrastructure bill that has passed last month, has allocated $62 billion to Department of Energy and headed by our ex-governor, Jennifer Granholm. And there are so many, under that bill, there is the increased access to clean energy to save money for American families, business and communities, help achieve our clean energy goals and accelerate job growth. So one of the things is also like $3.5 billion in veteran assistance program, $500 million to cleaner schools for our children and teachers. One of the things is they will be in coming years, there will be electric buses and EV infrastructure coming up. The dollars rolling out from the federal to the state, and the state has already announced they have 2050 carbon neutrality. So, and the state has allocated under the EAGLE program, Office of Climate and Clean Energy, they provide support growth for the local governments. So that is and also there's a $500 million in energy efficiency conservation black grant program, and that is to provide communities, cities, and states, U.S. territories. So I request to consider setting up some sustainability goals because we have to prepare for the dollars coming up. We have to have goals. We have to have plan so that we fund our utilities properly and for the period. Have good.
Thank you, Mr. Papuri. I appreciate you coming forward, and I apologize for initially skipping you. Sustainability is on our minds on many levels, and we'll definitely consider what you brought forward tonight to think about. Thank you. All right, with that, we now adjourn. Let's take 5 minutes or so, and then we'll meet for a closed session.